So as yesterday, the session will be decomposed in two parts. The first part will overview the theoretical background of the propensity score matching, which is one of the methods we'll use to overcome the problem of randomization, as Dr. Chahir explained yesterday, to be able to determine the impact or the treatment effect of a given program on a given outcome, whatever this outcome of interest is. And the second part, we will use STATA to apply this method on labor market panel survey to see, we'll define our program or our treatment and our outcome, which can be total expenditure, women empowerment. We'll see in more details. Okay, so the question we are trying to answer during all this workshop, all these days, and what Dr. Chahir started with you yesterday is we want to know what would happen with the participant if they hadn't participated in the program. So if a given program, like for instance, Takaful program implemented, this conditional cash transfer implemented by the Egyptian government, if its aim was to increase women empowerment or empower women. So we want to know women who didn't participate with this program, are they less empowered than those who participated in the program or not? What would happen for them? So for instance, for example, the ideal would be that we know what would happen to this same person who participated in the program if they did not participate. So we want to try to find what we will call a counterpart or a control observation that have the same characteristics as the one who participated in the program, but they didn't participate, to calculate the average treatment effect, to be able to know what is the impact of this cash transfer program like Takaful on women empowerment, for instance, or on the income of household, or in food security of children. So as I said, we will need to have this counterfactual group, or like a group who didn't benefit from the program, and trying to compare them with the treatment group. But as Dr. Chahir explained yesterday, in the non-experimental design, the treatment and not treated and non-treated groups, or the treated and control groups, are likely to have different distribution. So maybe women who already participated in Takaful have specific characteristics that are different from those who didn't participate in Takaful. So the difference in their empowerment level after the implementation of the program, or the difference in their income level in the program is not, we cannot say that it's only because of the program, maybe because of other characteristics that are that were already existing or were already observed even before the implementation of the program, that this may cause what we call a selection bias. So what we'll do, as I said, PSM or propensity score matching is one of the methods we'll study, trying to overcome this program, trying to define a group of treated or individual who participated in a specific program like Takaful, for instance, or Bulsa Familia, or for instance, patients who got a specific medicine, compared with, and compare them with non-participants who have the same characteristic. So as if we'll try to match individuals together, I will try to get two women who have the same characteristic, same education level, same age, same household size, everything, all the characteristics, all the observed characteristics are similar, to be able to compare them. So one of them will participate in Takaful program, the other one will not participate, and then we'll compare after the implementation of the program their empowerment level. Because we assume that both have the same characteristic, and we can assume that both maybe were able to participate in the program. So any difference in their empowerment level or in income level after the implementation of the program would be only what we'll call the treatment effect, or the effect of this. Is it clear? Am I going so fast? Anything is not clear in whatever I'm using as terminology? Okay, I will assume that it's nothing. Okay, perfect. So as we said, this PSM consists of find what we call proper counterfactual group or control group to compare with the non-participant. So the main idea is that we'll try to find observations, treated and non-treated, close to each other based on observable characteristics. And this is an important determinant or keyword in the PSM, and it will be one of its caveats as well. Because this merge or this match that we're trying to impose by matching each treated woman with non-treated woman, or each treated child with untreated child, based on the program we want to discuss, this matching is based on what we can observe as characteristics. As I said, age, education, geographical location, years of experience if we are controlling for employment. So all the observed characteristics that may look that they are close or matched to each other. This means that if there are unobservable characteristics, we will not be able to control it using the PSM. And this is one of the caveat or the limitation of the PSM that we will see next week, inshallah, how we will overcome this by using the difference in difference method. So PSM is mainly based on observed characteristics that would allow us to match between observations that we consider are close. And by doing this, as if we are mimicking the randomized assignment, because when I have two individuals who are close in characteristics and they are matched together, but one is treated and the other one is not treated, so we assume that it's random, as if the fact of being benefiting from the program or being treated by the program is random. Okay, but the question is, what are the characteristics we would include in our matching method? I mean, as I said, we can do age, education, employment status, where they live, what weight will give on them. So it's really important to define what are the characteristics and what weight or what importance will give to each characteristic. So the main idea behind PSM is instead of matching each dimension or each characteristic, because if I would match by age, okay, this is one dimension. If I will match by years of education, this is another dimension. If I match by geographical location, this is a third dimension. So the main idea that Rosenbaum and Rubin suggested in 1983 is, instead of having a multitude dimension, like to match first by age, then to match by education, then to match by geographical location, a fourth dimension by household size, they suggested that we need to calculate one indicator or one score that include all these dimensions. So instead of matching by each dimension, I will include all these dimensions in one score, and I will compare between the score of individuals. So for instance, if I will be matched with person Y based on my age, and I will be matched with person Z based on my years of education, no, I will use the age and the education, and I will create one score for myself, one score for X, one score for Z, and then I will see, I will match with whom exactly, which one is the closest to me based on this score. So we will assume that when we include all these dimensions and all these observable characteristics X in one score, and we match individuals based on the score, we will be eliminating the selection bias. Because now I know that these two individuals who have close score, I will not say exact score, because we will see it will be difficult to have the same exact propensity score or score, but this close score, when we match two individuals together, this means that these two persons had the same, as if they had the same probability of being selected in the program. So again, if I have a woman X and a woman Y, one is beneficiary from Takaful program and the other one is not, but using this propensity score, we found that they are close to each other, so as if they have almost the same characteristics. This means that we assume that both of them had the same probability of being selected in this program, but randomly one was selected and the other one was not selected. This caused this benefit of being able to eliminate the observable bias, which would allow us to reduce overall bias. Of course, we'll not be able to eliminate overall bias because, as I said, there may be some unobservable characteristics that we are not able to observe and to capture by the characteristics of the individuals. and this will not be considered when we match individuals together or treated and control groups together. So the treatment and control observation will be closed in the propensity score space, and this means that they are closed in characteristics. So instead of say that Z is close to Y in age, Z is close to M in education, no, I will create this score, and if they match or they are closed in the score dimension or the score multi-dimension, this means that they are already closed in the different characteristics or the different elements that I am including in my analysis. So this propensity score, it's calculated as if it is the probability of an individual to be treated, which means that T equals 1, given the characteristic X. So X is a vector of pre-exposure characteristics that we decide to include in our analysis because we think, as we'll see how we'll select it, but this X characteristics or X variables need to be observed and need to be determinants of the outcome variable of interest. So if my outcome variable of interest is, for instance, women empowerment, so X may include all the determinants of women empowerment, all the pre-exposure characteristics that would affect women empowerment. As I said, age, education, husband's education, husband's employment status, household size, if she had son, all the characteristics that may affect women empowerment without the program. If it's income, for instance, our outcome of interest is income, so all the X characteristics that I will include in my model should be key determinants of the outcome of interest, which is income. T equal 1, sorry, this is equal. Second. Okay. T equal 1 means that this observation of this individual being treated, and to calculate this propensity score or the probability of being treated given the observed characteristics, we can estimate this P score or this propensity score using probit or logic models, and this we'll see in detail. So this is the main idea or the logic behind the PSM, that we will define the characteristics we think it would affect the outcome variable of interest and would affect the fact of being chosen to be treated or beneficiary from the program. We will calculate a score based on this specific characteristics, but as we said, because we have multi dimensions and we don't have which weight is important for which factor, we will use a probit or logic model to estimate this propensity score. Then we'll start matching. So each individual in my sample now have a propensity score. This propensity score told me if the individual or the probability or the likelihood that the individual is treated, whatever is the situation, if he is treated or not, or she is treated or not. So this is the probability of being treated given her characteristics. Even if in reality she is treated or not, it's not this is the idea. The idea is what is the likelihood of being treated if she has these characteristics. And then using all these scores for all the observations that we have, we'll start matching between the different groups. Okay, so this graph shows you what we call the region of common support. This region of common support shows us, so we have here on the x-axis the p-scores, which can be from 0 to 1. So 0 probability of being selected or being treated is 0, and 1 is sure she will be selected. And this common support, so this curve is a density for non-participant, for those who didn't participate, in fact, in the program, and this is the density of those who participated in the program. And we can see that this common area, what we call the region of common support, shows us the P score of those who participated or not participated. So as I said, we will calculate the PX for all individuals, for participant and non-participant, and then we will start matching them together. So if I am treated and I have a given P score, I don't know, 0.6 6, 7, I will try to find another individual who has close score to this score, match them together with me, and then the impact of the treatment or the program on my outcome would be the difference between my outcome and this individual's outcome. We'll see this into details. But the idea is trying to find this region of common support, or trying to find this group of participant and non-participant, of treated and control, who have close P-score. And this is really important because what we want to do is to have large enough common support to be able, or to ensure that every treated has a match in the control group. So this region of common support will depend on the characteristics I will include in my probit or logic model, my observed characteristic I want to include in my analysis. So imagine if you want to match between individuals based on only age, you would have a large common support, no? Because I mean, a lot of individuals maybe will have same age or close age in our sample. If you want to refine more your analysis and not only age, you will add the education as a characteristic. So the group of individuals who have close age and education would be kind of closer. So with the more you try to refine your matching process and include more characteristic, the more you will have close region of common support. So this kind of trade-off. You want to include as much as characteristic as you can to be sure that your match is really correct, because this would affect how you match individuals, and it would affect your calculation for the average treatment. But in the same time, you don't want to have very, very specific characteristics that you will end up with a very close or a tiny common support area, and you will find maybe some treated individuals who have no matching. So as I said, the more we add characteristics, the more we refine our matching process. So if I include age, education, husband's characteristic, husband's age, husband education, husband employment status, parents education, parents employment status, geographical location, religion, ethnicity, the more the number of children, the number of boys she has, the household size, the more we include X's, the more we are sure that yes, we have good match, or we are controlling for all the characteristics that may affect the fact of being selected in the program. However, we have to be sure that these characteristics will not end up with very tiny common support, and we are not able to find a match of this individual. So on this blue area, we will select treated individuals and will match them with non-treated individuals who has P-score in this selected or common area. Is it clear? Questions? Comments? No, it's not like a formal size. We'll see now when we start talking about the matching methods and about how we can choose the treated and how we can choose the control individuals to match with the treated. So the idea is that you want to include as much as you can of characteristic to be sure that you are controlling for all the characteristics that would affect the selection in the program, but in the same time don't include a lot of very, very specific details that it will be very difficult to find a control person. So for instance, if I want to match woman X with woman Y based on their age, education, geographical location, husband's characteristic, employment, for instance, and education, age and education, we may find several individuals who have the same characteristics. Maybe we'll have, I don't know, I'm just giving an example, 10 women who have same age, same education, their husbands have the same age, their husband has the same education level. But if you start to include more characteristics, like for instance, the employment status of the husband, if he is wage worker or informal, in which sector. So it's more difficult to find two women who have close age, close education, their husbands has close age, close education, and the close employment status. If you decide to include as well the number of boys she has as children, so it's more difficult to find two women who have close age, close education, close husband's education, close husband employment status, and the close number of boys as children. So this is, as I said, it's kind of trade-off. And one of the things we'll see now, and especially when we'll start working using STATA, that you need to have sensitivity to do robustness check and sensitivity analysis. So maybe I will select a specific number of variables that I know that would affect the selection into the program, and use one matching method. But then I said, okay, let's do the same analysis again, but by including another variable that would make my would allow me to refine my selection and see what would be the change on the matching process and on the results. So two things we'll see that would affect our results, and to be able to calculate or estimate the impact or the treatment effect of a given program is the selection of the X's, what variable to include, what observable variables you want to include in your analysis, and how you would match between both of them. Yes. So that is asking, is the X's are what we interested to measure before and after treatment, or just something wherever? Okay. No, Dalia, it's exactly, it's observations or characteristics that we want to use only to match individuals. It's not, so there are two things. There are the variables that I want to measure before and after the treatment, which we call our outcome variable. And as I said, this depends on the program we want to test. So if I will talk about takaful, takaful may affect the income level of the household. So my outcome variable would be income level of the household. If I assume that takaful would empower Egyptian women because the cash transfer is provided to women, they have the smart card and they can use it. It gives this cash transfer gives them kind of decision power within the household. So my outcome variable, my variable of interest that I think that takaful would affect, and I want to measure it before and after the treatment, in this case would be her decision power within the household. But to do the matching, I want observe socio-demographic characteristics that would affect the outcome variable, and it would affect the selection into the program. Because if you remember, our main problem is that we don't have random selection. The fact that woman X participated in takaful and woman Y did not participate in takaful, apart from the observed characteristic, maybe other things that we cannot really observe, or because of her characteristics, she decided to, or she was selected. So we control this by this matching process. So I want to have two women that, given their probabilities, they are likely to be selected into takaful program, but one would be selected and the other one not. And I will match both of them together and compare their outcome or their variable of interest. And yes, as Om said, it's robustness check. I need to check the different X's I want to include in my analysis. We will see that we have different matching methods. So we wanted to check that our results are not really affected by the matching methods. So think of it as a process with different steps. The first step is to define what is your outcome variable of interest. What is the variable that you want to study or compare before and after the treatment? Is it income, women empowerment, decision power within the household, children, food security, stunting, for instance? What is actually the outcome of variable, the outcome variable of interest? Second step, what are the observed characteristics that may affect this outcome variable of interest, and in the same time would affect the fact of being selected into the program. Third step, after specifying my x's and my observed characteristic, I will start calculating what I call the score. So instead of matching individuals based on all these characteristics, I will calculate the score and I will match between the individuals based on the score. So each woman who benefited from takaful will have a control or counterfactual woman who has the same score, which means she has the same characteristic, but she did not participate in the program. And I will compare my outcome variable of interest between women X who participated and the matched Y who did not participate, and see what is the difference in the outcome of variable between both of them. Okay. So here, as I said, our treatment impact estimate will depend on two important things. What are the variables I will include into my equation, the observed characteristics I include into my equation to estimate the propensity score, how I would specify this equation, and how I will match between the different individuals. Because we'll see there are different matching methods. Okay. So to select these variables x's, because as I said, if I match between women based on their age and their education, I will have more match than if I compare between women based on their age, education, and the age and education of their husband, which would be different if I match between them based on their age, their education, age and education of their husbands, and education and employment status of their parents. So the more I include x's, the more I will refine my matching, but it would become more difficult maybe to find a match. So we need to think what are the important variables to include. So first, we can include any variable that can affect program placement, even if this the intervention level, the pre-intervention level of the outcome variable. So for instance, if I will talk about takaful, so what are the criteria of being selected into takaful? Household size, woman age, woman's education, the income level of the household, because it's supposed to be cash transfer for the vulnerable and the poor groups to increase their welfare, the number of children, because there is maximum number of children that can get benefit of the cash transfer. So all these variables would affect the probability or the likelihood that a woman is selected into takaful program. If her husband is working or not, if her husband or she has an elderly son who is working abroad and sending her a remittance, she will not be able to benefit of the program. So all these variables I may include in my my model or my logic or probability to calculate the propensity score. Sometimes also we can include variables based on interviews. I would make interviews with those who benefited and those who didn't benefit from the program, trying to see what are the main observed characteristics or criteria of selection to be placed into this program. So as we said, if we are not able to include enough observable variables that would explain what is the likelihood of being selected into the program and not being selected into the program, we'll do a poor job in eliminating selection bias. If I match between individuals based only on age and education, sure that this is not the only criteria that would make a woman participate in a program and not and another woman not participate in the program. So in this case, I will be ignoring selection bias based on observable characteristics that I didn't include in my analysis. But on the other extreme, if I include all very specific characteristics of her characteristics, her husband, her children, her parents, her household, all these details, it may become more difficult to have match, and the area of common support will be very tiny, and I will not be able to find match for all the treated groups. So if I cannot find match for each treated individual, I will be losing observations and I will not may have good estimates of the treatment effect. On the same time, if I ignore important characteristics and observable characteristics that would explain the participation into the program, I would end up with selection bias, and I would do good job in estimating what is the real impact, or on average the estimated impact of program as takaful on women's empowerment or households income or children stunting, for instance. Okay, so the steps, as I said, we need to define the x's. After I define the x's, I will predict or calculate the probabilities of participation into the program, or the likelihood of being selected into the program from a probit or a logit model. Then I will be matching the observation based on the distance between each treatment observation and control observation in this neighborhood. And I will use this p-score as metric of distance. And in fact, as we said, it will be, after doing this matching, as we said, we will compare between the treatment outcome or the outcome of interest between the two individuals and see if there is a significant difference between both outcomes or not. But this second step is very important. So what I was talking about till now is the first step, how we can select the x's to include it in our logit or probit model to be able to calculate the propensity score. I get the propensity score, I match individuals, I can compare their outcomes of interest. But the second step is very important, how I would match observations, because the p-score is a continuous number, especially when I'm including continuous variables as age, years of education, maybe years of experience. Okay, I may have number of children, household size. I may have some discrete or binary variables as geographical location, as employment status, for instance, of her husband, of her parents. But still, the p-score, the probability of being selected into the program, is continuous number. So it will be very difficult to have two individuals or two observations who have exactly the same value of the p-score. If mine is 0.568, it's very difficult to find someone with the same value. But we wanted to find someone with close match, with close value. This is why we said we want to have close match or close value. How we will find this? As I said, we don't have two with the same scores, so we have two methods. We have simple matching methods, and we have more complicated matching methods. So we will see some matching methods, not all methods, but just to give you an idea about how we can match together and how also selection of this matching method would affect your results. Okay, so for the sample matching methods, we have two ways. The first one is to simple one-to-one matching. So this match, I will match each treatment or each treated observation with the nearest control observation. Okay, so if it's simply the difference between P, my propensity score of the woman I who is treated, with the PG of the woman who is not treated. Okay, and this can be the woman before me or the woman after me. I mean, I can sort the P values, and it depends on the match. But this distance between let's see. So as if I have, so this is the P, the score of woman E who is treated, minus the P of G, another woman who is treated, and I want to take the minimum of this distance. But this distance can be very large and can be very small. For instance, if my PI, the example I give, is 0.576, for instance, this is the P-score of the individual who is treated, and the nearest one can be 0.689, but also the closest one may be 0.812. So I will select the one with the minimum distance between PI and PG, but PI if 0.576, it can be the closest one, this one or this one. So maybe the closest matching would be kind of far or not as close as we think. This is why we can impose kind of maximum distance like a caliper. So I am saying or I'm asking STATA to choose the observation that is close to my treated observation. So a match with the control observation with my treated observation, the closest one, but not far, or not the difference would not be more than, I don't know, 0.02 for instance, or 0.01. So as if I am specifying a tolerance level that this is the maximum distance I can accept if the closest observation is further than this maximum distance, or what we call caliper. No, this would not be considered as close match. And this is why I am telling you, if you include a lot of x's, that it will become very, very specific, and your tiny, common area is very tiny. Maybe you will not be able to find a control observation for each treated observation. So it will be more difficult for you to match observations together. But this is the simplest thing that you can do. The second simple method, matching method we can apply is the nearest n neighbors. I will take like an average of 5 or 10 neighbors, and I will match my treated observation with it. So I will use this average, and n I have to specify to STATA and to define, and they all also will have like robustness check. Maybe the nearest 5 observations, or the nearest 9 observations, or the nearest 2 observations. Anyways, we'll have to compare or do the analysis several times by changing this parameters that would affect my results, and compare between their outcomes. And here also I can impose a given caliper if the difference between this treated observations and this average between the n neighbors, you will have to maximum a given tolerance level that I can accept. Another method that can be more sophisticated or more complicated is based on kernel function. So the kernel matching method is a non-parametric matching estimator. So it's kind that I am weighting, or I am giving weights for the individuals in the control group to be able to construct the counterfactual outcome. So it's not only average weighted like here, like I calculated the average outcome of the n5 neighbors who has close p-score like the treated observation. No, I want to give weights to the individuals in the control groups and consider them this weighted average of the outcome as my counterfactual outcome. And I will show you now more details of this matching process. And these weights will depend on the distance between the individual from the control group and the treated group. And also the selection of the kernel function and the bandwidth parameter of the kernel function, which is parameters that would affect the results. Both of it also would affect my results. So you can see that you have different level of choices, and each time you choose something like a parameter or a kernel function or the x's to include, this would affect your matching process and would affect your final results. So you need to be sure, if you want to be sure that your estimated average treatment effect is not only based on your choice of x's or your choice of the matching process, you need to make this robustness check, as we will see when we'll work with STATA, that we are sure that our analysis is robust for whatever matching process I am using, whatever bandwidth parameter I am using for the kernel method. I want to be sure that if this really program would empower women or not, if this program would reduce poverty or not. We need to be sure of this. So this is a third step after matching between the treated individuals and the controlled individuals based on whatever matching process we'll use. Simply we'll have to compare between the outcome of the treated with the outcome of the control, and I will take an average of all these individuals. So here, YGT is the outcome of interest, like the decision power of women, or like income of household, or children food security measured by stunting or wasting, for the observation G, who is treated, minus the matching or the control individual, the outcome of the matched or control individual that I selected based on my matching process. And then I will calculate the average on of all these differences by dividing it by the number of treated individuals, which is NT. And in this case, it will give me the average treatment effect. If it's positive significant, for instance, so I can conclude that being selected into Takaful program empower women, or being selected into Takaful program increase household income. If it is negative, this means that if it's negative significant, this means that it decrease or disempower women or decrease income. And if it's not significant, if the difference is not significant, this means that there is no significant difference between this outcome of interest between women who participated in the program and those who didn't participate in the program. Questions, outcomes, anything while I'm trying to open this bottle of water that I am not able to open it. Any question? Okay. Are you still with me, or I already lost you? I mean, you can have no questions, but are you here?
No, doctor, we are still here.
Yes, yes, we're here.
Perfect. Just to be sure that I'm not so boring that you slept or you find something more interesting to do. Okay, so let me just show you in two cases based on the nearest n neighbors and the kernel matching method, how the outcome variable of the control groups looks like. So here in this, this is the average treatment effect for if I use the nearest n neighbors matching method. And you can see, so it's the same. So let me know this. So it's the same idea. Here is the y, or the outcome variable of interest of the treated individuals, and this one is the outcome of interest of the control groups. But if you remember, we said that if we do match one by one, it would be as the one we saw before, simply yi of the treated minus yg or yi of the control with the closest individual. But if you remember, we said if I will use the nearest n neighbors to be sure, or it's another way of matching, I will use the weighted average, and this is the weighted average of the outcome of interest of the control individuals. So I will match yi individual I with several persons who are close, who are in the neighbors based on the p-score, and I will calculate the weighted average of this, or the average of this outcomes of the control individuals, and see the difference. What is this weight? So CI is all the individuals who can be considered as control individuals for individual I. So as you can see, it's the minimum. It's based on the distance between the score of individual I and the score of individual G who are not treated, and I will take the minimum between both of it. And CI will include all the individuals who can be considered as control individuals because they are close to the treated observation or in the neighborhood of the treated observation. The weight would be simply 1 divided by the total number of individuals or control matched of observation I. So if observation I will choose the 5 neighbors. So it's simply the weight, I will divide 1 by the total number of nearest n neighbors, and I will calculate average weight or average outcome of all these control observations, and calculate the difference between the outcome of interest of the individual I who is treated and this weighted outcome of all observations that I consider that they are controlled. And again, this is a difference for each observation, and then I will take the average of all this and I will obtain my average treatment effect. And again, if it's positive and significant, this means that we are we have significant positive effect of this program. If it's not significant, this means that being selected to this program or not, it would not really affect my outcome variable of interest, my empowerment level or my income level. The other method I want to show you is the kernel matching method. So as I told you, it's kind of weighted average of the outcome variable of interest. Let me see first. Sorry, there are questions. Seems also at the level of the countries instead of firms and individuals. Okay. Okay, so first for size question, no, you have to define the same n for, because we will see in the in STATA, you have to specify what are the number of n you want to include, and this is to be sure that all your individuals are matched on the same way, or they are matched one by one, or they are matched by the closest 2 or 3 observations, or they are matched by the three closest observations. So you need to specify it in the beginning. Sharafuddin, usually is this methods of impact evaluation or for calculating the treatment is mainly for individuals or firms. In fact, it's more common. In fact, it's more commonly used in the health sector or in medicine. They used to use it for calculating estimating the impact of a new medicine on the patients. So, for instance, giving the actual context and the fact that we are meeting virtually, with give a new vaccine for the COVID-19, and now they want to see if this new vaccine would have positive impact on reducing the likelihood of individuals of being affected by this new virus. So they will try to randomly, I mean, if they can do it randomly on a group of individuals, they will try this new vaccine and the other one not, and will try to compare between both of them. And if you want to compare between both of them, if it's not randomized, the same. I will try to get individuals who have the same characteristics. Maybe in this case, they need to have the same health history if they don't have, if they are diabetics or not, if they are in good health or not, to be sure that they are matched or close to each other, and then see the impact of this new vaccine on them. So this was the beginning of this idea of the treatment analysis. And this is why also we call it treated, as if it's like a patient treated by a specific medicine and control. Then we start, I mean, it started being used a lot for all this kind of interventions to improve human capital of individuals by trainings or by giving cash transfer. So it's very difficult to apply it on a country, because it's very difficult to think of a program that can be implemented on a specific country or specific countries compared to others. So it's mainly in the ideas of individuals or firms, and it's used a lot, especially for the social protection programs or any programs that it aims or target to improve the welfare or the living standard of individuals to increase their income.
Yes. But I have a question, please.
Yes, sure.
I found some papers which use the PSM, but for the case of countries, like for the issue of exchange rate, which is fixed or flexible, and they try to see if the countries with flexible or fixed effects, which are for treated or non-treated, and they employed the same methodology for the cases of flexible or fixed effects on some papers. And I have this issue because we use the propensity score match only for the problem of impact evaluation. In the case of countries, there is no impact evaluation like exchange rate. And I found some papers in high-ranked reviews, and they employed PSM for the case of countries level.
Okay, and personally, I never saw PSM method as a country level, but also maybe because my research interest does not include exchange rate systems or more macro analysis, so it's possible to think. It's just, I mean, I didn't see it, but for me, it's also difficult to think what are the X variables they control, because yeah, you will need to control for characteristics, for macroeconomic characteristics as a country level, more than individual characteristics. I mean, I would assume it would be the same. I mean, it was the same steps, but the X's you control for will not be the individual characteristics as discussed here, but maybe other characteristics at the country level. I mean, I cannot claim anything about it because I never saw it. So, and I didn't know it was used in such literature. So thank you for telling us for this. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, so here, as I said, is the same logic. We wanted to compare between the outcome of interest for the treated individual with the non-treated individuals, but here instead of using the the average of the outcome of interest between several n neighbors, I will use a weighted function, which is a kernel function, and if you see this, so you have YGC is the Y of the controlled individuals. Still, you are doing it as for all individuals who are considered as control observations for the treated I. The G is the kernel function, and the HN is the bandwidth parameter. It's kind of the parameter that smooths the function, and this can take different values, and each value would have different results on our analysis. This is also why you need to try several G function and several bandwidth parameter value, and this this ratio, as we said, is a consistent estimator of the counterfactual outcome, but it's not, it's weighted average to have more specific matching method. Okay. Some notes that we need to consider when we using the matching methods. First is that yes, the treatment, I mean, the idea is non-parametric with the PSM, just comparing between both. But however, we cannot say that it's completely non-parametric because we are using specific parametric specification, which is a logit or propet. So even if it's non-parametric, but one of the steps is based on specific parametric specification. The other thing, as I said, how you model your decision, what are the variables you include, which method you match with, what is the caliper you will define, what is the bandwidth parameter you will use, all this control variables would affect your results, and you need to make sensitive analysis and be sure that your results are robust for whatever change in any of these dimensions or control variables. Okay. There's the same thing. To test how good the match is, we have several steps we need to follow, and this we will see it in the second part of today's session. You need to test to which extent the observable characteristics that you include in your model, in your analysis, are balanced between the controlled and the treated observations. So you will calculate, you will see in the steps, we'll include the x's, we will estimate our propensity score using probit or logit model. We'll do the match based on whatever estimation method, whatever matching method we'll use. Then you will have two groups. You will have the controlled groups, the treated groups, and the matched control group. You will have to calculate the means of the covariates across these two groups. So I will calculate the means of age among the treated and the means of age among the matched control, the means of education years among the treated, and the means of education among the education years among the control matched group, husband's age in the treated and in the control group. And you will compare this means using a t-test. If the difference between the means of age of the treated and the means of age of the controlled matched group is significant, this means that you are doing bad job. Because the idea that I want to create two groups that they are close to each other, they are almost the same, and they almost have the same likelihood of being selected into the program. So if there is a difference in their characteristics, in the average of their characteristics, this means that these groups are not close enough to be able to compare between their two outcomes. So we see that, and this nicely provided automatically by STATA, you will have this group with the average for each covariates and each characteristics for the treated groups and for the controlled matched groups, and if it's significant or not. If one variable is significant, this means that you are doing bad match and you have to redo your steps again to be sure that there is no significant difference between the two groups. Is it clear? Okay. You can examine the effect of the matching method on the area only of common support. So, I mean, the match can be done on the common support, or I can do it in general, but it will be the mainly part used, and we'll see the difference between both. And as I said in the beginning, the closer we try to make the match, the more likely that some treated observation will not find any match. And this would reduce your model. So I understand that sometimes you want to include more characteristics to be able to refine and be sure that we are including all variables and all observable characteristics that would affect the fact of being selected in the model, in the program. However, it's very difficult to have controlled for the treated observations if you have very, very specific observations. Okay. Yes, another thing that you need to consider. So first, we estimate the propensity score value. I mean, the probability or the likelihood of being selected or not. Then you make the matching. Then you compute the average treatment effect. So all these steps makes that you have more variation in your results, in your average treatment effect, than the normal sampling variation existing from your sample. So when you want to calculate the standard error of your average treatment effect, you need to do bootstrapping to correct the standard error, because otherwise it will be larger than it should be, because it has been, I mean, the average treatment effect itself is based on an estimated value, and this estimated value has a variance. And this estimated value is based on a sample that already there was sampling variation. So all these variations that exist from the sample itself and from the estimation steps for the propensity score would increase the variance of the average treatment effect. If you don't consider this, and to correct for this, you have to bootstrap your standard error to be sure that it is corrected for this variation and your standard error are robust, so you can decide if this difference is significant or not significant. And this is the case for any analysis that is based on an estimation, so adding more variations than the variation existing already in your sample. Just here, like a small comparison or short comparison between PSM and social experiment, that in social experiment, your PSM or your P-score is constant, because if it's random, so we are all have the same probability of being selected for the program or of being participating into the program. And this is why we said that PSM is trying to mimicking this method, this randomization, by saying, okay, I will calculate the propensity score to be selected. It will not be constant, but at least given the characteristics, I want to know how close is the person to be selected in the program, or what is the likelihood to be selected into this program. And this is why we be able to match based on equal probability, and if there is no equal probability, it will be the closest one. Okay, and yeah, this again the same idea that as I discussed in the beginning, we are based, all this analysis is based on observed characteristics. So I assume that X and Y both will have high likelihood of being selected into the treatment because of their observed characteristics. While in reality, or in fact, maybe there are some unobservable characteristics that I cannot really include in my analysis, and this would affect the likelihood of being selected into the program. And this is one of the caveats of the PSM that we'll try to overcome with the difference in difference. Okay. Another way to use the propensity score is what we call the propensity score weightings. So here in this approach or in this way, we will not use the propensity score to match. We'll use the propensity score as a weight, you know, in addition to the sampling weight we have in our sample. And more specifically, we will give each observation a weight based on the inverse of the probability of being treated or not. What does this mean? Let me show you. So first, I will calculate the propensity score as we did in the beginning based on the X's characteristic. What are the probability of being treated? I will calculate the estimated propensity score using logit or probit, and then I will calculate these weights. So these weights, WI for individual I equal what? Equal TI divided by the TI is equals 1 if the individual is treated, 0 if the individual is not treated, divided by the propensity score estimated by my logic model, plus 1 minus TI divided by 1 minus the probability of being selected into the program. If the individual is treated, simply TI equal 1, so it will be 1 over P hat plus 1 minus 1, 0. So if the individual is treated, the WI will be 1 over the propensity score of being selected into the program. If the individual is not treated, so TI will be 0, and this first term will vanish, plus 1 minus 0 divided by 1 minus the propensity score of being selected. This is very interesting because this means what? Okay. If the individual is treated, the P hat score is supposed to be high or low? So the W, so the weight for the individual who is treated equal 1 over the estimated propensity score, okay? And the weight for the individuals who are not treated equal 1 over 1 minus P hat score. So let's look first at the treated. If I am a treated person, the P hat I is supposed to be high value or low value?
Low than 1.
Yes, in all cases it's lower than 1, but if I am already treated, this means that I am more likely or less likely to be selected into the program?
More likely.
More likely.
Exactly, more likely. So if I am given my characteristics, I am an individual who is more likely to be treated, so this means I will be treated. And if given my characteristics, I am less likely to be treated, this means that P hat I will be low value. So if given my characteristic, I was not supposed to be selected, which means that P hat has low value. The weight will be high or will be low? Let me say the question again. Now the P hat value, the estimated propensity score, will take high value if I am likely to be selected, if my characteristics make me more likely to be selected. And P hat, the propensity score estimated, will take low value if my characteristics makes me less likely to be selected, okay? So if I am less likely to be selected, okay, the P hat I will be low value or high value?
It's supposed to be low because you're less likely to be selected.
Exactly, it's supposed to be low because I am less likely to be selected. And in this case, if I am, so given my characteristics, I'm supposed to be less likely to be selected. But in reality, in fact, I am treated. So in this case, my weight of being treated will be high or will be low?
It will be high.
Racha, is the weight calculated as 1 divided by PI? So
yes.
So in this case, it's going to be high because it's 1 divided by something of a
low. Exactly no. So this is the idea that if I am, so using these weights, I will give more weight for individuals who are less likely to be selected given their characteristics, but in fact, they are selected or they are treated. So as if I am correcting for these individuals, given their characteristics, they were not supposed to be treated, but they are treated. So to control for this, instead of doing the matching, I will simply give them high weight in my analysis. So let's see the opposite. If I am less, okay. If I am given my characteristics, I am more likely to be selected. If I am more likely to be selected given my characteristics. So we said the P high هنا كانت low, the P I will be low or high?
It will be high.
It will be high, okay. Right. So given my characteristics, I have high probability of being selected. However, I was not treated. I was not selected for the program, in fact, in reality. So the WI in this case will be this one. 1 divided by 1 minus P hat I. The WI
So it's gonna be low.
Exactly, it was gonna be low because the P hat I, no. It will be high. Again, and given my characteristic, I'm supposed to be selected. The P hat I is high. Okay, but in fact, I was not treated. So my weight for the non-treated is 1 divided by 1 minus P hat I. The P hat I is high. 1 minus P hat I is low. 1 divided by this low value will be
High
value. Exactly. So this means that
Doctor,
yes.
please, I didn't understand very well. I didn't understand very well. It is possible to do this, but with an example, with takaful, for example. If we take the example of takaful.
Okay, I will say it again. So now I want to calculate the propensity score for individuals to being selected in takaful. I don't know if they're selected or not. I will just collect their information and calculate the propensity score. Okay. So say I have two women, woman X, woman Amal and woman Nadia. So Amal, given her characteristic, was supposed to be selected for the program. Given her age, her education, her household income, her number of children, her geographical location, Amal was supposed to be selected into takaful and benefit of takaful. So P hat I of Amal is high or low? Given her characteristic.
It's high since she's eligible, so it's high.
Exactly. So P hat of Amal is high. And we have Nadia. Nadia is given her characteristic, her age, her education, her geographical location, her household size, she was not eligible for the program. She was not supposed to be selected into the program. So P hat of Nadia is high or low?
Is low.
Is low, exactly. So this, given my model, given the propensity score I calculated based on the characteristics I think they are necessary to be selected into the program, we decide that Amal have high likelihood of being selected into the program because she is eligible, while Nadia is not eligible for the program and she has lower likelihood of being selected. This is given my model. But let's look in reality, in the data of takaful, we found that Amal was not treated. So given her characteristics, she had high likelihood of being selected, but in fact, she was not treated. She was not selected into takaful. While Nadia, who had low likelihood of being selected, she was treated. Okay? And right, I have these two cases. I have the likelihood of being selected or not, and I have the reality of being treated or not. So now, when I will estimate my model, I want to see the impact of being treated or not on the women, on the decision power of Amal and Nadia in their households. And instead of doing the propensity score matching, no, I will use the propensity score as a weight, and I will do the regression, simple regression, not simple. I will use the multiple regression where I will use T as a dummy variable, which means 1 or 0 if they are not treated or not. Like these weights that are based on the propensity score, we have different weights for the treated and the not treated. So if the individual is treated, their weight will be 1 over P hat I. For Nadia, who is treated, the weight will be high or will be low?
Will be low.
تاني هو الويت equal 1 over the propensity score of being
selected
or not. فنادية is not supposed to be selected.
Okay, so she has a low propensity. Okay, sorry.
Exactly. So she has a low propensity, but she was treated. For this, her weight will be 1 over this high propensity. So sorry, this low propensity. So her weights will be high.
High.
Okay. طيب, for Amal has had high probability of being selected, but in fact she was not treated. She was not selected into the takaful program. So her weight for the non-treated equal 1 over 1 minus P hat I. So P hat I is high for Amal. 1 minus P hat I is low value. So the weight for Amal will be high. This means that when we use the propensity score weights to correct for the non-randomization, we will impose high weights for the individuals who were unlikely to be selected, but in fact they were selected, and for individuals who were likely to be selected, but in fact they were not selected. So because these individuals cause it's not a problem, but it's not clear why they had been selected or not selected. Amal, her characteristics tell us that she needs to be selected, but she was not. So I will give her her high weight. Nadia was supposed not to be selected into takaful, but she was treated and she benefited from takaful. So I will give her weight, high weight. But if I am an individual that my likelihood of being selected is high and I am selected, perfect, I don't have any problem. And if I'm an individual that my characteristics are not supposed to make me eligible for the program and I didn't benefit from the program, perfect, it's good. The problem is, you know, this is what we call inclusion and exclusion error. That someone was not supposed to be included in the program, but we included in the program, and another one who is supposed to be into the program, but we didn't select them. So to correct for this, for the non-randomization, and for something that makes them being selected while they should not be, or they were not selected while they should be, we will give them high weights. And these weights are specified based on the propensity estimated by my model that tell me if they have high likelihood or low likelihood for being selected. Is it clear?
Thank you.
Thank you. So this propensity score can be used.
Thank you.
Thank you. So questions. Okay. So that's it. So you, in all cases, the first step that you will calculate the propensity score, and you can use it as weights, as in any regression, or you can use the matching method and you can compare the average treatment effect between the outcome of being treated or being selected or not. Okay. Yeah, so this is how we will calculate the average treatment effect. So based on being treated or not, and I mean based on your weights, you will compare between the weighted weighted outcome variable of interest of the treated minus the weighted outcome of those who are not treated. So the same idea, but instead of being the matching based on each observation, on each treated observation, finding a control matching, no, you will use it as a way to calculate the difference between both of it, and you can use it in your regression as any weights. Okay. One thing that may cause a problem with the weights, or you have to check using the weights, that sometimes it will be inaccurate or unstable if you have individuals that are very unlikely to get treatment and they did, I mean, their P hat I is very, very low, and still they are selected, or they were very high and close to 1 to being selected, but they did not select. So it's kind of the outliers that it's not clear at all why they had been included or not, and you need to check for these cases. Also, you can focus your analysis only on those. I mean, this you can use both. So you will match, you will find the common support, and then you will use this weight to compare between the weighted outcome of the treated and the weighted outcome of the non-treated. But as you can notice from both methods, if you use the matching and compare the outcome for each treated and control, or you will use the weight to compare between the weighted outcome of the treated and the weighted outcome of the control, a lot of decisions can change your outcome results, and you need to be sure that your analysis is robust and is strong. And you will see next week, inshallah, because we will be able to use the difference in difference and the PSM in the same time. And in this case, we can use the weights, we'll use the propensity score estimated as weights for our analysis when we use the difference in difference. Okay, this is an application. I mean, I would present this paper calculating the impact of Bulsa Familia Conditional Cash Transfer Program, which is the Brazilian version of Takaful. In fact, Takaful was implemented based on the experience of Latin America and mainly Bulsa Familia in Brazil. And here outcome. So this is a treatment group. The treatment program was to being beneficiary or not of Bulsa Familia, and the outcome variable of interest was child labor. The aim of this paper was to see if we can the households who benefit from Bulsa Familia, their children are allocating less time for labor or not. And just quickly before going for break, I want to show you two things. I will send you the paper so you can read it. It's a very interesting paper. Here are the variables that they include in their analysis, their axes that they think it would affect the outcome of interest, which is time allocated for by children to labor, and in the same time it would affect the selection into Bulsa Familia program. So they include the children characteristics like age, their color if they are black or not, the parents' characteristics, net income of the household per capita. They include some other characteristics as if it is female-headed household or not, if it's rural household or not, and number of children between 0 and 5, and number of children between 6 and 17 in the family. This axis would affect being selected into Bulsa Familia, and would affect also the time allocated by children for labor. And so this was the outcome of interest, the hours by children to labor. So as we will see after the break for the PSM result, these are the results of the logic model. Like any logic model, you have all these characteristics, and it shows you the impact on the likelihood of being or the hours worked by the children in this household, given all these characteristics. So you need to be sure that they are all significant. They are the good variables selected for being affecting your outcome variable of interest. And then this is the average treatment effect. So you have the number of treated and the number of the control. This is the estimated after doing the matching. They found that the participation in Bulsa Familia program, in fact, increased child labor by 52.5%. So here it shows that your selection, your treatment program have a negative impact on your outcome variable of interest, because it increases. I mean, negative, it's positive, but it's negative impact. I mean, it's like bad impact, that we're assuming that being member of Bulsa Familia and receiving cash transfer is supposed to decrease children's labor, while it found that it increased it. So the households who are beneficiaries of Bulsa Familia have their children is working more than those who are not beneficiary of Bulsa Familia. So Bulsa Familia is not really solving the problem of children's labor, and this can be explained by the very vulnerability of this household and they're very poor status, so they are obliged, even if they receive Bulsa Familia transfer, they have to send their children to the labor market. Okay, now if there is no question, any request, comments?
No, doctor, all is clear.
Okay, perfect. So now we'll take a break, for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 4:32, and we'll start the next session by applying this on STATA, applying the PSM on STATA. I will send you, meanwhile, the data set if you want to work simultaneously with me at the same time. If not, anyway, I will send you the presentation with the video, the recording, the do file, and the data file as well. Okay, but I will send it for you now, the data, if you want to, if you are interested into trying at the same time. Thank you, and see you in 10 minutes. Hello, everyone. Are you here?
Yes.
So did you receive the data?
Yes, the data file.
Okay.
Yes, doctor, we receive it.
Okay, perfect. So, so this is a data set I will use now. As I told you, if you want to run the same thing with me, you can do it. If you want to just follow, and then you try it by yourself anytime as you like. Anyway, I will send you the do file as we said, with the PowerPoint presentation and the recording. So this do file is mainly based on a do file by Ragi Assad and Caroline Kraft. So I've just made some updates or some little minor changes. And we'll use the labor market panel survey. The data I sent to you is not it's not the whole data set, it's just a part of it. And as Dr. Shahid said yesterday, it's really important that you, let me just change the date. It's really important that you write everything in the do file. For me, I consider it like a journal, because I don't know if I will work again on this paper in 1 week or in 1 month. Maybe I will forget why I did this, why I run this model, why I changed this variable. So I always like to write everything in the do file, just to be able to recap what happens. So for now, I will go line by line quickly, and then we'll start doing the PSM. So this clear all for just to clear all data sets exist. Set more off, when we work with STATA, sometimes the output or the results is screen by screen, and you have to enter each time. So set more off. I wanted to make all the results directly. I will show you the difference now. Then here I specify my directories. Do you know the global command?
Yes.
No.
Global
Okay.
and locals.
Okay, I will explain, because we will use it in several places. So here, global is kind of I'm telling STATA that I want you to create a box or a place called the original data, and the path of this original data, or where it exists. And I specify let me make it larger, bigger. So I specify the place or the path where this original data exists. And I ask STATA to create another also box or place called the temp directory. You can call it anything. And I specify the path of this, or what is inside this box. The advantage of this is that when I want to call what exists in this box, I simply have to write a $sign and then the name of this box. Let me say it in different way. By lag, I sent it via the email that Ramash sent yesterday or today morning, where she sent all the details, all the records of yesterday and the PowerPoint presentations. So if you didn't receive it, just send me an email now and I will reply to you. I will forward it to you. Thank you.
I can forward it to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So for instance, the advantage of doing this, I am one person who like to use how to say, to whenever I did anything on the data, I like to save it under a different name, because I will not be able to get it in my directory, no, on my laptop. Assume now that I have 20 times the command save user Racha, all the path of my file where the data exists. And then I change this do file with Dr. Chahir. So Dr. Chahir, he has to work on the same do file. He will have to change all the save commands to be able to save these files on his computer. So imagine if you have 20 or 30 lines that you have to change it every time when you are working with your co-author. I mean, it takes a lot. I tried it before and it takes a lot of time. Simply, if you change your computer and you want to change the place, instead of every time, every line where you have save or use, you change the whole path, I simply, from the beginning, ask STATA that all original files that I will use, you can find it in this box that I call it original_data, and I specify the path on my computer. And I ask STATA that you would save anything in, you will create another box called the temporary directory, and you will put it in this path. So when I wanted to open the file that exists in my original data, I simply came here and say use $original data. So STATA, when it will see the original data, it will go to this path that I specified it in the beginning and open this data set. When I open, this is the original data. I wanted to save it again under another name, but I don't want to save it in the folder original data. I want to save it in another folder, temporary directory. So I ask STATA to save it in temporary directory. And because I specify global in the beginning, so STATA will be able to save it in this place. So just tips to simplify our lives when we are using STATA, especially when you are using with other researchers, or when you are doing long do files, and maybe in you will be working again on this in 2 months, and you change your computer or your location of your folder. So just to simplify these things, and we'll use it again in another context. But of course, you have to specify in the beginning. I mean, I have to run these 2 commands before starting, otherwise STATA will not understand what is the original data and what is the temporary directory. Okay, so this is the file I sent. Can you hear me now, Sam, or I'm still cutting?
No, doctor, now it's way better. Just
Okay.
cut for like a minute or so.
Okay, perfect. So as I said, this data set is based on the labor market panel survey. So we'll start with, let me do this here. Overview of the variables that we have here. So we have the individual variable. We have 140 observations. We have 43 variables, including the individual IDs, household ID, governorates, urban or rural, قسم or markaz, which is a small administration decomposition in Egypt under the governorates. We have the marital status of the individual. We have the education level of the individual. We have, this is the variable of interest, or based on this variable, we create our variable of interest is if there is a current migrant in this household or not. And we have the age. we have the number of elderly and number of children from 0 to 5 and from 6 to 14 in the household. And we have the weight, and we have 4 variables of interest. I mean, these are our outcome variable of interest. Labor force participation, if a woman aged from 18 to 49 in the household is participating in labor market or not. We have if she is a wage or salary worker, or if she is not wage or salary worker, and if she participates in subsistence work. So our variable of, so you can see this more, when I set more off, it will be closed. And these are other variables at the, I will come back to this.
I'm sorry, can you share your screen so we can see the commands and the variables as you are exploring them? I mean, I have my data set open as well, but if you can share your screen would be better.
I am sharing my screen. I don't know why you can't see it.
I can see you. I cannot see the screen.
Canon?
Yeah.
I'm already, can you see my screen?
I think she means to open the do file next to STATA to see both at the same time.
I don't think she see my screen at all. Nura, you see my screen or you just see the STATA file that اللي قصدك عليه?
No, you see the screen, just the screen.
You can see the do file now and the data set, or
Yes,
you can...
yes, now yes.
Okay, Nura. Nura, I think we lost Nura.
No, I'm not. I had my mic on mute. I'm sorry. Now I can.
Okay, you can see me. In fact, it was shared from the beginning, so I don't know why you. But anyway, now you see it. Now you can see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay, so here I'm just trying to get you familiar with the data and to see several commands that we can use to see what we have. So as I said, yes,
Doctor.
Yes.
It is possible to present explicitly the problematic, the migrant in a household, the impact of a migrant in a household on the wage of women.
No. In fact, our program or our treatment is the fact of having migrant and receiving remittance, and our outcome variable of interest, the variable I want to compare between the treated and not treated, are 4 variables of labor market participation of women labor market participation, women being wage worker, women being not wage worker, and women working in subsistence, not the wage. It's a decision to being participating or not in the labor market.
For example, I have a household. I get some remittances, and we want to see the impact, to evaluate the impact of these remittances on the labor market, on female or women labor market.
Exactly. So if I will relate it to what we said in the first part of the session, being member in Takaful, in our example here, is having a migrant in the household and receiving remittance. Our outcome of interest in the case of Takaful was women empowerment and income. Here in our case, our variable of interest of outcome is if women participate in labor market or not.
But is there a theoretical relationship?
Yes, in the literature, some of the key determinants, one of the key determinants of female labor force participation is receiving remittance. That women who receive remittance may be less likely to participate in the labor market because she has another source of income, because she is the head of the household. If her partner is the one who is traveling, so she has to be at home and to take care more of her children and of elderly. So this is one of the key determinants. And as not everyone is kind of also, we can consider it as a treatment or as a program, because not everyone migrate. And there are some characteristics that would affect being migrant or not. And in the same time, these characteristics may affect participating in labor market or not. For this, we want to test this treatment or this program or this experience of being migrant and receiving remittance on decision of women in this household to participate in labor market. Is it clear? Okay, perfect. Okay, so so as I said, the migration is our variable of interest, sorry, our program or treatment, and a labor market outcome. And we have 4 outcomes that we can test: is participation in labor market, if she is a wage worker or not, and if she participate in subsistence work or not. So we can have different outcomes that we want to test and to compare between migrant and non-migrant. One of the other variables that may affect this treatment, which is having a migrant or not, and in the same time affect female labor force participation, is the characteristics of the community where they live, where the household live. So this also we can include it in our analysis. So we have all the MS variables are variables at the Shiacha level, at the neighborhood or the area where the individuals live or this household lives. So we have share of males between 18 and 64 years old who have intermediate education. We have a share of males between 18 and 64 with university degree. We have share of employed male in private sector. And we have share of men in agricultural sector and share of men unemployed. And also from the literature of labor force, of female labor force participation, we found that the context or the area where women live, the characteristics of this area affect also the decision of labor force participation, if she would decide to go outside and participate in labor market or not. And this is why we include this Shiacha or area characteristic to be able to reflect this part. So this is a variable of interest, Meg. So this, if you are current migrant or not, or you have current migrant or not. So we have around 5% of the individuals are migrants. Okay, for those receiving remittance or not, we have around 3% of the individuals listed as they are receiving remittance from outside Egypt. Okay, what I want to show you else. So if we want to see if the fact of, I mean, just as I said, playing with the data, manipulating the data, trying to understand it, if I want to see if there is a difference between this treatment or having a current migrant and this outcome of labor market that we are interested in, labor force participation. So you can see that if we want to see in row, let me show it in row better. Okay, so among those who are current migrant, we have 34% participating in labor market, while among those who there is no current migrant, we have 31 who are participating in labor market. So, I mean, we cannot really conclude if having a migrant would affect labor force participation simply by this table, but at least to try to understand the descriptive or the dynamics in the data before doing our analysis. So now, as I said, we want to define what are the what is our sample of interest and what would be our excess variables, the observed characteristics that we will include in our data. So we have the variable H group in the data set. It's a dummy variable equals 1 if the individual is woman aged between 20 and 49. So this is to focus on this sample of interest. We want to focus only on women who are in this age bracket that they can participate in labor market. And we want now to define what are the variables that can affect the labor force participation of women. So what do you think are the excess variables that we can include?
Maybe marital status, if she's married or not.
Exactly, marital status, if she is married or not, and we already have this variable.
Number of children also, if she's a mom or not.
Number of children.
Level of education.
Level of education.
Age.
Place of residence, urban, rural.
If
exactly,
she has
urban or rural.
If she has children or not, and how
Yes.
many?
we have the share of children between 0 and 5 and share of children between 14 and 16. So exactly as you said, we will include the age squares for the nonlinear relation. We will include also the education level, her marital status, number of children under 6, and number of children between 6 and 14 in the household, number of elderly also, because as you know, especially in our region, women are more involved in care work in the household. And let me make the advertising. ERF with the UN Women produce a very interesting report about the care economy in the region. It just came out in January, I think, this year. It's very interesting report discussing the care work of women and how it's affected by her, I mean, if she is employed or not. In all cases, women in our region are mainly the main caregiver for children and for elderly. So it's a very interesting report. I highly recommend if you have time to read it. So we include the number of elderly as well. We have also the average monthly non-labor income if she receives sources from or income from other sources. And as I said, also from the literature, community level variables matter. The context where she lives matter. So we'll include the share of males with intermediate and university education, the share of males in the private sector and agriculture sector. Okay, all these variables, because I will repeat it several times, also for simplifying our life, I will tell STATA that put all these variables in this box called name x1, and whenever I call x1, you know that you have to call these variables. So I will use the same command, global x1, and I will include the name of all variables that I want to have it as my x variables. Yes, Asom, the double burden, exactly. The fact that she has to work outside the house and inside the house. Okay.
Doctor,
yes, sure.
Is there any way to test if there are many covariables?
What do you mean by this?
Here we have a lot of characteristics. Is there any way to test if we are using a lot of characteristics?
In fact, as I said, it will be you have to do this robustness check. So if the literature and the theory told you that these are the variables that need to be included, because they explain the outcome variable, which is female labor force participation, and also it can explain the fact of having a migrant or not. So you will include this, and then you can include other variables or try to remove variables that you think are not significant and see if this would change your results or not. But based on the theory and on the literature, these are the variables that observe the characteristics that would affect our outcome variable of interest and would affect the treatment, which is having a migrant or not in the household.
And like you've said before, we can do a test, a t-test for all the characteristics, and we use only for those variables who are not significantly different, different.
Exactly, we'll see it now. So these are the variables we decide to include, and we'll see if this right choice or not when we'll compare between the treated and the controlled group based on the the average values of these two variables between these two groups of individuals, and this is what we will see.
Doctor, I have a question, please.
Yes.
So, doctor, in the X1 variables, we are including education level 1, 2, and 3. Doesn't this create a possible collinearity problem, or because I think one of them should be excluded to be a reference group, perhaps, to compare with?
I think we have 4 education levels.
Oh, okay.
Yes, let me. So you have no education, primary and preparatory, secondary, and above secondary. You have 4, and we created these 3 variables to avoid. And in fact, if by mistake we include the 3, STATA itself will drop one of this.
True. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so the STATA command to be able to that we need to use to match the to do the PSM and to match between the treated and non-treated individuals is PS match 2, but it's not. I mean, I'm using STATA 13. I don't know, maybe if you have more advanced STATA versions, maybe you will have it automatically, but I had to download it. So I simply find it PS match 2, and then I locate the link and I download it. So just check if you have it or not. Okay, so now this command will do all the steps we talked about. It will first estimate the logit model of being migrant or not. And remember that being migrant is our treatment or our program that we want to test its impact on female labor force participation. So at first it will estimate the likelihood of being migrant or not. And it will calculate the p-score or the estimated p-score. And then we'll start to match between treated women who are living in a household and have migrant and non-treated women who are living in a household where there is a migrant. And as we said, we'll focus on women who are aged between 20 and 49, and also we'll focus on women who are living in rural areas and who have and who lives in a household that had migrant or outcome variable of interest. We can test it all together or one by one. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. And so here all of it is in green, and just explaining to you what would be the output or what are the steps that will be produced by the command. The 4 outcomes of interest are labor force participation, if she is working in wage work or not, if she is participating in non-wage work or not, and if she is working in subsistence. And then it will match or compare the difference in outcomes between both groups, the matched and non-matched. And of course, I have to specify to STATA which matching method we'll use. In the first command, I will show you where I will use the kernel function, and you use its default one. I can use it for the one-to-one. I can use it one-to-one with Caliper. I can use it with n neighbors. So I have to specify which matching method is used or is applied. And we will try different ones to see if we have different results or not. Okay, so this is the command PS match 2 current migrations. This is my treatment. This is my T equal 1 or not. $X1. So I am asking STATA to call what is in X1 global. And I want to run this analysis on women who are in the age group between 20 and 49. So if age group equal 1, if they are not receiving remittance, and if they are receiving remittance, and if they are living in rural areas. And I'm specifying to STATA what is my outcome variable of interest. Sorry. And the outcome variable of interest is, I will focus here on one outcome only, which is being participate in labor force or not. And I am specifying that it is to use kernel matching method as a matching method. Okay, I will run it. Let's see. Okay. You see, I have error message because I didn't run the line where I'm specifying what is $X1. So for STATA, it's not clear what are the variables I have to use. So I have first to run this one, global X1. Okay, and then run this. Okay. So this is the first part of the output, as I show you in the paper, in the application of Bulsa Familia we saw in the presentation. The first part of the output is the results of the probit regression. Robert is the default one. So I have here the results of all the variables I include in my model: the age, the education, marital status, number of children, number of elderly, monthly income, and the Shaka characteristics on the likelihood of having a current migrant in the household. Then the second step, or the second part of the output, so this is the first part. The second part of the output, also as we saw in the presentation, so you have the labor force participation value among the treated and among the non-treated or the control in the unmatched groups and in the matched ones. The unmatched that between, I mean, without doing the matches for those who are outside the match. And so here you have the average value among the treated and the average value among the control, and you have the difference, and you have the standard error and the t statistic. And it tell you, it has a note that the standard error does not take into account that the propensity score is estimated. I am not using here the bootstrap. So, I mean, this should be taken into consideration that we cannot, that already the difference in this outcome of the treated and the outcome of the controls is based on estimation. So we need to control for this by bootstrapping, but I didn't do it here. And then I didn't show you in the beginning, but if you open your data set, you'll find that your data set ended at the agricultural land. You don't have all these variables that is created by STATA. So the variables created by STATA, when you run the command PS match, you have the P score, you have is the individual is treated or not, you have those on the support common area, you have the weight is created, and you have the value of the women labor force participation based on this matching. So this table, which is the third part of the results, it shows you the interactions between being treated or not and those who are on the common supported area. So you have 237 women who are treated, who have current migrant, 3,203 who are not untreated, and the match is done between these two groups of individuals who are on the common support area. Okay. Let me, if you do this, if you tab these two variables created, treated, and support, you will get the same results as this one. And okay, before going to the step of the comparing if I did a good match or not, my question is, do you see, from these results, we can say that there is significant difference in female labor force participation between those who receive remittance or have current migrant and those who don't have current migrant?
Yes. Yes, because the t-test is higher than 1.96.
Exactly. So the difference is significant, and we can see that among the treated is higher. So we can conclude that.
But the difference here is 8%.
Yes, is very small, but still is positive and significant, which means that being, I mean, having a current migrant in the household may increase labor force participation. But, and also this from the literature, it increased the labor force participation, but we didn't discuss which type of labor, because maybe she is not wage worker, but she is self-employed. With the money received from remittance, she can do projects and managing this project from home. So, but at least we know that those who are living with migrant can or have higher labor force participation rate. Okay.
But doctor,
yes.
Doctor, I have a question. But if we use, for example, we are using kernel matching. If we use, for example, the nearest neighbor, and we get different results, one is significant and another is insignificant. There isn't any test to choose which is the right one?
No, if you have different results based on your matching method, this means that something is wrong, and that the significant result you obtained is based on your matching methods. So you have to try to find what is the problem. If it's in the variable x's, you are the selection of the variable x's, and this is what we're talking about. You can hear me?
Yes. Then there is no one solution.
No, and this is because each step, I mean, your selection of the x's variables, the selection of the matching method, within the matching method, the selection of the caliper or of the bandwidth parameter. Each step you choose something, it would affect your results, and this is why you have to try different matching methods and different variables to be sure that your results are robust and are correct and not only affected by the method you are using.
Then if we use, for example, if we use kernel, nearest neighbor, stratification, and the radius, and we get for the first one, we get the right the same impact, which is positive, and we get for another negative. Is there a problem or not?
I mean, I don't think you will find in one positive and in one negative, but maybe in one significant and in another one not significant. But if your results are robust for at least 3 methods, so maybe in the first one only there is a problem. But so you can base your results or your recommendations on the 3 methods. Okay? But if you do just 2 methods and you find that there are contradictory results, I mean, if one positive and one negative, this means that there's a huge problem because I mean it's completely different impact. But maybe in one significant and the other one not significant, and in this case, if you have to try other methods and try to see what is it. For instance, if you will use the kernel and you will use the n neighbors, and we'll see here now, you have to test different value of the bandwidth parameter, different function, kernel function for the closest n neighbors. You have to try different n neighbors. I mean, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see how this would affect your results.
Thank you.
Thank you. So these are the results that are automatically produced by the PS match 2. If you remember, as second step, we say that we have to be sure that there is no significant difference between the variables that the average of variables that we select, the observed characteristics in the among the treated groups and those among the control groups. And this we can do it by PS test. So this test for the imbalance between the covariance, and it will run a t-test to compare the average for each variable in the 2 groups. And instead of writing all the list of variables, I'm asking STATA to call for the x1 global command as I did in the beginning. And as we said, this will allow us to test for how good our match is. I will run this one. Okay. And here, so you have, for each variable, you have the mean, the average among the treated and the average among the control if there is a bias, and you have the t-test and the t-value and the p-value. And this is the variance of the treated divided by the variance of the control. Based on this, let me make it there for you. Do you think we did a good match or we didn't do a good match?
Is not a good match.
Not a good match. So no, doctor, it's a good match because there's no difference between the.
Yes.
So it's not significant. So it is a good match.
Okay, so who agrees with Assam that it is a good match?
Yeah, it's a good match since there is no significant difference between the means of the 2 groups, so they are like similar.
Exactly, Maya.
We have only the 2 variables which have MS intermediate and AVJ.
No, but both are there is no significant difference in all of it. If you compare, I mean, if you compare the t statistics with 2, or you compare the p-value with 0.05, you will find that there is no significant difference between the mean of treated and the mean of control for all the variables, and this means that you are doing a good match. If any
I
variable,
may have, sorry,
yes,
yes.
no, sure,
I may have a question.
Yes.
If there is variable that they are not significant, sorry, the difference is not significant. Yes. So should we eliminate those variables in the calculation of score, or we kept the score as it is, or what do we do?
If you find in one of the variables that there is significant difference between the treated and the control, this means that there's something wrong with the matching, not with the score first. I mean, this shows that there is good match or not good propensity calculated or not. So first, if you find any of these variables where you have significant difference between the mean of the treated and the mean of the control, try to test with another matching method. So for instance, here we try with Kernel. If for instance, the share of men working in the agricultural sector were significant between the treated and the control, this means that there is something wrong with the matching based on this variable. So I will try another matching method. If it persists and I always have significant difference, so this means that this variable is not good to include in my propensity score calculation and for matching. So I will recalculate the propensity score again without this variable.
Yeah, and to which extent do we know that we have to change the method? Like if we have only one variable, 2, or how many variable that should be significant?
There is no rule. Even if here everything is perfect and we will find we can't find any significant difference, still you have to try with another matching method. You need to be sure that whatever your matching method is used, you have to change. So even if all variables are not significant between the two groups, the treated and the control, still you have to try other methods to be sure that you have the robust results and not only based on this matching method.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Doctor.
Yes.
We use this t-test after the step of calculating the propensity score.
Yes, exactly. Because I mean, first you need to calculate the propensity score to be able to do the matching. Without do the PS match 2 and getting these results, you will not be able to find the treated group and the control group. Okay, I mean,
we can say that this step is a robustness check.
No, this step is a check that your matching is good. Your matching using this method is good. It's not robustness check. It means that I calculate propensity score, I use the kernel for matching, so I want to know this kernel matching method is good or not. So here, based on this, is good. Okay, but I need to try another matching method to see if really being in a household with current migrant have increased the labor force participation for women or not. Okay, so don't be satisfied with that everything is fine and it is positive and there is no significant difference, so it's fun. No, you have to try with another matching method to be sure that your results are not related to the matching method you calculate or you used. Okay. So now let's see the other. Here I will show you the graph of the common support area. So all the part in blue are all the blue bars are the untreated, and the red bar are the treated. So you can see the propensity scores where you have value of both. So for instance, for higher than 0.25 as propensity score, you have only treated, you don't have untreated. So for these individuals here, in this part, you cannot really match them with someone else because you don't have, or it will be with someone from this area, so it will be kind of far, not so close. So for this, maybe it would be better to do the match only among the individuals who are in the common support area, because these ones who are treated, who have high value of the propensity score, will not have very close control observations to match with. Okay. So if you wanted to estimate the propensity score based on common support, you will do the same command, but you will add at the end. Let me remove this. We will just add the option comment. So the same thing, I want to PS match to current migrant as my treatment variable, all the X's I include in my model for women who are in this age group in rural areas. I want to focus on the outcome variable women labor force participation using kernel matching methods, but only match for those who are on the common support area to be sure that they are really close. And I will run it. So these are the results again of the, in fact, I mean, this is an example, but if you look at the propensity score as a logit model, already we have a lot of variables that are not significant. So maybe you will have to dig it more and try to see what are the problems or how to change it. Okay, here are the difference between the treated and the control, and you still can see that it is positive. However, it's still very, very small difference. It's not important, but still it's positive and significant. And here it shows you who are on the support and who are of the support among the treated and the non-treated. So you have 3 observations who are treated but are not on the common support area. The ones that the red bar that we saw in the graph at a higher value of p-score. Okay. So this, if you wanted to focus on those only on the common support. Let's now use another matching method and see if we'll get the same results or not. So here I will use the caliper, and the default one, the option, if I add the option ties, it will be the one-to-one matching. But as we said, the one-to-one matching, it matches with the one where we have the smallest distance between propensity score of the treated and propensity score for the control. But you can add a caliper, which means that you have a maximum level of tolerance. If it is larger than this, don't consider it as a control. I mean, the closest control observation should be at the distance by maximum 0.01. I will also focus only on women labor force participation. You can add, of course, the other outcomes. So here I'm using one-to-one matching. Here you have, again, the PSM would be the same thing. The propensity score created is always the same because I didn't change the X's variables I'm including in my model. It's the matching method that differs. And
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask if it's possible to have more than one match to an individual. I mean, if individual X is matched with individual Y, can we have an individual Z also matched with individual Y, or it's just one-to-one?
It's very rare to have two, because this means that they have exactly the same values of the p-score. So it's very rare in the one-to-one matching to have 2 control observation who exactly match the treated ones. But even if it happens, so it would be better to use the n neighbors, because in this case it will be the average outcome of the 2 values. But in general, it's very rare to have 2 observations who have exactly the same clause. Maybe, I don't know, if the treated is 0.015, you will have one 0.014 and one 0.016. But to have 2 0.014 is very rare to have it. But as I told you, for double, STATA will take the clause, and if there's something like this, it will take one of it. So maybe it's better to use the average outcome among the controlled or the neighbors, n neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so here you have the difference between the treated and the control. You can see that if you compare the standard error between this and the other one, it increased. And for the T statistic, now we would say that the difference between the treated and the control is significant or not significant?
Not significant.
Doctor, we don't see the T test. The t-stat. We don't.
Here is the t-stat. I mean, it's the same screen. I didn't change anything. Can you see the t-stat?
No.
Okay, so other ones.
I can see
anyone can see it.
I can see it. I can see.
So
Yeah.
Marina can see it. Another one.
Yeah, I can see it, doctor.
Okay, so Sharaf, I think yeah, all the others can see it. So Sharafuddin, I think there is something where there's connection or something. So yes, so Marina, you said there is no significant difference here based on the t-statistic.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
so,
it's less than 1.96.
Exactly. So you can see that when we use the kernel method, we found that there is significant difference in female labor force participation among those who have current migrant and those who don't have. But when we use the one-to-one, we have no significant difference. Okay. Of course, one-to-one is a more simple method, and as Marina said, I mean, it's very rare to have two observations, but it may be the case. Another thing, we didn't specify a caliper. So we are not sure the closest one, the closest neighbor, how far it is from the treated, okay? So let's now specify a caliper just to see if still we have no significant impact or we have significant impact. Before doing this, we'll do the step of testing the average or the means between the different variables. Okay, so here are, let me make it larger. Okay, can we conclude that there is significant difference or there is no significant difference?
There is no significant difference.
There is no significant difference. So according to this matching method, the average value of the all included variables for the treated is not significantly different from the average value of the variables in the control groups, but
Yes.
we have different results about the average. So at least we know that the matching is good, but according to this matching, we don't have significant difference between the treated and the non-treated. Let's specify the
Doctor.
Yes.
For example, if we are invited by government to do this study, for example,
yes,
and we get these two different results, one is significant and the other non-significant, what's the implication?
Thank you, Shara, for asking this question. So it's exactly, always put yourself as if you are a consultant for a policymaker, for a minister, and they are asking you if we have to implement this program or not. So here, for instance, for remittance, it depends for each household. But think about takaful. If one matching method tell me that takaful has significant positive impact on women empowerment, and the other one tell me that there is no significant difference, I cannot go to the government and I said, I'm not sure which one. You have to continue digging in this. You have to, as I said, ties or one-to-one matching is very simple method, and you are not sure where is the closest observation. So you will do it again with the caliper. If you still have different results, you will try again with the method. Don't go or provide any policy recommendation if you are not 100% sure that your results are robust for whatever X's you include and whatever matching method and parameter you are using. Okay, so in this case, if I am a policymaker and they are waiting, if I'm a consultant for a policymaker and they are waiting for my recommendations, I will have to wait and try with other methods to be sure that I'm doing this. I mean, to be sure that I'm not giving any policy recommendations that would not have positive or had not good results or research behind. Okay, here I will try again the ties, but I will specify a caliper. So you can see the option I am adding that not maximum than 0.01. On it, you have the probit results. And according to the T statistic, still we don't have significant difference between those who are treated and those who are controlled, who don't have migrant. Okay, let's try another other options to just to be sure that we don't, if we are doing well or not. So here we have different ones. This one with the so this one I'm using the how to say it? The n neighbors, the n closest neighbors, and I am I'm specifying 5 observations. So I'm telling STATA that you will match with the average outcome with the 5 closest neighbor of the control group. Let's see what it will give us as results. So again, this is the same method, the probit. Okay, here you have the other outcomes. Okay, so you can see that with the n5 neighbors, we have significant impact. It's positive for labor force participation, and this means that when we use the simple one-to-one, we don't have really significant impact. When we use more advanced methods, we have significant difference. Right. Let's try another method, but let's test the difference between the variables. Okay, here's the difference between the variables in the 2 groups. Same thing, we don't have any significant difference. Okay, so let's now try with another method. Okay, let's try with the radius is the same thing or let's try with the kernel but with another function. Then the default one is the normal, but with another type of kernel function to see if it will be the same as the kernel one we did in the beginning or not. STATA is not happy. So you can see that with kernel is significant. So here, if I want to provide a policy recommendations and only with the one-to-one neighbor is not significant, but with the kernel and with the n neighbors is significant, so I can conclude that those who are in the treated households or households with migrant, they have higher labor force participation compared to those who are in the control. So as I told you, you have to try several ones. So here in the do file, I will send you, you can see that in kernel function, I am using different type of the kernel function. With the radius or the n neighbors, I am using different calibers. You can try different than 5 n neighbors, 10 or 2 or 3, you can try different ones, okay? As I told you, you have to correct for the standard errors because it is based on an estimated value. The average treatment effect is based on estimated value, which increase the variation in addition to the variation in the sample itself. So we need to do a bootstrap. This is a command in the bootstrap. So you have to specify an initial value, an initial seed. And in the bootstrap, here you have standard error 1 for the outcome 1, standard error 2 for the outcome 2. Of course, in all the examples I show you now, I focus only on one outcome, which is labor force participation. But if you have different ones that like wage worker or subsistence worker, you can do it this way. And here for simplification, because if I mean, robustness check, you cannot do it with 10 repetitions. You have to do it with, I mean, at least 100. But if I run it now, it will not end. It will take long time, and it depends on your the power of your computer. But I will give it. I will run it with 10 only for how to say, for simplification to show you the results. You have to specify which cluster you are using, because also you are using individual variables. So you are using the characteristics of women, but also you are using characteristics as the Chahir level. Which is the share of men in agricultural sector, the share of men with university degree, the share of men unemployed. So you need to specify to STATA as well that you have, for some variables, you have variation at the Sheikha level, not at the individual level. So for this, we specify clusters that we are working with variables at the cluster level, which is the Sheikha. So here you are asking STATA to run the same command, PS match current migration. You are doing it with the kernel function, but you want to bootstrap the standard errors and to cluster for the Sheikha, just to be sure that your error terms, your standard errors are corrected for the variation based on the estimation and on the sampling of the sample itself. It's not supposed to take long time because it's only 10 rounds till the outcome appears. Any questions?
Doctor?
Comments? Yes.
Is it possible to re-explain why you have introduced the Shiacha, the cluster? Why?
Yeah, because if your variables only at the individual level, which means that you include only characteristics of women or their households or their husbands, so you are sure to have variation from one observation to another one. I mean, from woman 1 to woman 2, they have different age, different education, different marital status, different household size. But you have some variables as Sheikha. So all individuals living in the same area or in the same neighborhood, they will have the same value of this variable. So for instance, if in the Sheikha or in the neighborhood, you have 10 persons. So all 10 women in my sample who are living in this first Sheikha, they will have the same value of share of men unemployed, share of men in agricultural sector, share of men in university degree. So these variables at the Sheikha level will not vary among women who are living in the same area. So to control for this, because to tell STATA that you don't, these variables do not vary from one observation to another one, but vary from the cluster of Sheikha 1 to cluster of Sheikha 2, you have to specify this cluster. Otherwise, you will not, your standard error will not be correct. Okay. Okay, so here, of course, as I said, I just used 10 replications for the bootstrap, but it's not correct. You have to do it at least 100, but just for sake of time. And here you can see the output. You have the coefficient or the difference between the treated and the control group for each variable. So S1 is for the labor force participation. You have the standard error. You have the Z and P value, so it is significant. So we can see that, in fact, for all the outcomes we have, there is significant difference between those who work in, those who have current migrant and those who don't have current migrant.
Doctor,
yes.
Here, if we want to interpret those coefficients, we can say that if when we control for Shiacha, we get a positive coefficient. Also, when we control for Shiacha.
No. In general, the interpretation of this coefficient means that because it's positive and is significant, that your outcome variable of interest, which is female labor force participation in households where there is a migrant, which means they are treated, is higher than female labor force participation in households where there are no migrants. Okay, the control for Sheikha does not affect your coefficient, it mainly affects your standard errors. I mean, the correct, how to say it, in fact, the correct command and estimation to do from the beginning was to correct for Sheikha and for the bootstrap for the variance. In the beginning, I was doing it without correcting for clustering, just to explain for you the command and what are the output of the commands. But to have correct standard errors and robust for the different variations and the variation at the Sheikha level, you need to do this step where you control for Sheikha and for the different estimations. But at the end of the day, you can see that you still have the same results, and these results are robust. That the outcome variable of interest, female labor force participation, is higher among treated individuals who have current migrant compared to those who are in control groups or control households. Okay, so correcting for Sheikha and the bootstrap is to be sure that you have robust standard error that take into consideration the different level of variation. Okay.
Thank you.
So, doctor, please excuse me. What if the results becomes the opposite? So in the bootstrapping, it becomes insignificant.
If it becomes, I mean, the correct one is that you have to do bootstrapping. So this is the correct results. Okay. Because the one that you do you run without bootstrapping, you are not correcting for the variation of the standard error. So you are not sure that your standard error is the correct ones. It's not right.
So when the bootstrapping is giving another decision, so this means that the model from the beginning has something wrong?
No, in fact, when you are doing your research, you have to use a bootstrap and to correct for clustering from the beginning.
Yes, the bootstrapping is correcting, not ensuring that I'm correct from the beginning.
No, what I want to say is that from the beginning, you need to bootstrap and to use the cluster option.
Okay.
This is the right thing to, and again, you will do it with kernel, you will do it with in the neighbors, you will do it with caliper. But the right things that you need, I mean, for your research or for your recommendations for the policymakers, you have from the beginning to correct for this. What I was doing in the beginning, it's not it was wrong, it's just a step that is not complete, just to explain for you what is the command PS match to is doing.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
But it's, I mean, it can, if you do the two steps as I did now, it's possible to change the significance because you are changing, you are correcting for the standard errors. But when you are doing your research, you don't need to do the steps without bootstrapping and without correcting for cluster and then doing it again with this, because the correct one is this last step to be sure that your standard error are robust for all variations that had been that results from the estimation and from
the command of the bootstrap should be the first. Then we use the kernel and the other methods, right?
No, they are not substitute; they are complement. I mean,
yes.
Okay. So I mean, here I am doing the same thing kernel. Okay. With a bootstrap, I can run the same thing, but with stars. I mean, I can do it like this. Okay, and let me, instead of kernel, I will say stars. Okay.
Okay.
So these are the right ones that I need to compare. What I was doing in the beginning is just I was explaining to you what are the different output or parts of the output of these commands and what are the difference between kernel, ties, and all this. But if you are doing a research or a paper, you have to correct for the standard errors from the beginning. So you just need to do these steps. You don't need to do it first without bootstrap and then with the bootstrap.
Okay, thank you, God. Thank you. Yes, clear. Thank you.
So here's the same thing, but with kernel. And you can see that with kernel, it's not significant again, and for the labor force participation. Sorry, this is not with kernel, this is with the ties, with one-to-one distribution, with one-to-one matching method. Okay. The last thing.
Sorry.
Yes. Sure,
yes. How do we know which variable should we use as a cluster? And if in our data set we haven't this kind of variable, should we create it?
No, in fact, it depends on your analysis. So for instance, if you don't have Shiacha and you will only include variables at the individual level, that explains labor force participation. Okay. Here in Egypt, based on the literature, we know that the Shiacha or the area where women live affect women labor force participation. Okay. So for instance, I will self-cite myself. There is a paper with my colleague Hanan Nazir where we found that women will participate more in labor market based on the characteristics of the community where she lives, because this is a decision related to her perception in the society, in the community. If she lives in a community where a lot of women participate in labor market, many women educated and many men are educated, it's more accepted that she will decide to go outside the house and participate in the labor market. Once she decides to participate in labor market, what type of employment she will be doing, self-employed or wage worker, it depends more on her characteristics, not on the characteristics of the community where she lives. So because we know that in Egypt, community context matters, and it's important to take into consideration when we study labor force, female labor force participation, we decide to include these variables. And when you decide to include variables at the governorate level or city level or shiakha level or neighborhood level, you had to correct for this, because as I said, all women living in the same area will have, I mean, I'm living in area X in Cairo, and my neighbor and my other neighbor, all of us, we are living in the same area where 50% of men are wage workers and 80% of men are educated. So this variable will not be varying between myself and all women who are in this area, but it will be different between those who live in Sheikh Zayed and those who living in Zamalek in Egypt, for instance. So because this value will not change from one observation to another one, but will change between all those living in Zamalek and all this living in Sheikh Zayed and all this living in Heliopolis, we need to tell STATA that take into account that this variable is not varying by observation, but varying by area or by shiakha or by neighborhood. But if you don't if I don't include the community variables, you will not have to correct for this cluster. And if you don't, I mean, even if in Egypt we know that it matters, but we don't have variables at the community level or at the governorate level or at the shiakha level, I mean, we'll not do it. We'll not include it because the data is not available. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So the last thing I want to tell you is about the propensity score weighting. So here the steps are kind of different. So I will run simple probit regression of the current migration on the different variables of interest, conditional on the sample I am interested in, women who are in the age group from 20 to 49 in rural areas. So I will get the same probit results of my model as first step. Then I will estimate myself the p-score by saying predict. So this is an post estimation command for probit, and I will call the estimated p-score score. So you see here the last variable in the data set is underscore p difference. If I estimate this score, you see that it creates new variable called the score. This is the p hat in our slides. If you remember the pi hat, this is the estimated propensity score resulted from my model. P-score is another command that you can use it than PSMatch2. Then I will create the weight. Okay, now I want to create the weight of, you remember weight for the treated will be 1 over p hat I, and for the non-treated will be 1 over 1 minus pi hat. Okay. Where is the command where I'm creating the? I'm sorry, I can't find where is the command. Oh, here it is. So here I am creating the command gen weight. I create the variable called weight equal current migration status, which means treated or not treated, the TI, divided by score, which is the p hat, plus 1 minus current migrated divided by 1 minus score. This formula, let me show it to you. This formula, it corresponds to where? This one. Okay. So I'm taking into consideration the fact that the individual is treated or not, and the p hat score, which I obtained from my probit model. So I will run this command. I created the weight variables. Of course, for some observations, it will be missing because here I'm creating to the whole sample, but what I'm including in my model is only women who are in rural areas. Okay, and then I can calculate, I will calculate the probability of participating in labor market, taking into consideration the status of having migrant or not. This one. And all the other control variables for the age groups I am interested in. And I will include the weight. So I will repeat. First, you will see all these steps. I'm explaining each one because I'm estimating first without the x's, then with the x's. But to just to give you the final message, I first estimate the probit model here. I first estimate the probit model of being a current migrant, take into consideration all the x's variables I'm including from the beginning. I estimate the p hat. I use the formula of the weights to calculate the weight using the score estimated, the p hat, and the fact of being treated or not, which is a current migrant. Then, as I told you, we will estimate the probability of being a participant in labor market here with the, I will regress the probability of being participant in labor market on my treatment variable, which is if I have a migrant or not, the explanatory variables I'm including in my model. I specify the sample I'm interested in, women in rural areas who are in the age group I'm interested in, and I am adding the weight variable I created to my regression. So whenever we have weight in our sample, use the p weight. So I am giving weight to each observation based on the sampling of my sample. But here I am giving weights to each observation in my sample, not using the sampling weight, but using the weight I created based on the p score estimated from the probit model. So I will run this one. Something wrong. Okay, this variable is not okay. Let's this was not included from the beginning. So again, so I estimate my model, and now I have the probit model, but I have an explanatory variable, which is a treatment, and I can conclude that having current migrant in the household increase the female labor force participation at interval confidence 10%, at alpha equal 10%, because here is 0.078. And here, the difference between this regression and what Dr. Chahir told you yesterday, that we cannot simply be sure that this is the impact of the treatment because it's not randomized. I correct for the fact that it's not randomized by the weights I created. So I am giving higher weight to the individuals that were likely to being selected to the treatment given their characteristics, but they were not selected. And I am giving high weight for the household that were not likely to be selected in the treatment because of their characteristics, but in fact they had been selected. So by correcting with this weight, I can say that women labor force participation is affected by this treatment, which means that having a current migrant increase labor force participation. So you can see that, yes, John.
Excuse me, but here when we get this coefficient, it's not the same value than before. Then when we use kernel or radius or neighbor, we didn't get the same value than now.
Yeah, but we are not expecting to give the same value because they are not the same thing. This value is like any coefficient. If the situation changes from having current migrant to from not having current migrant to having a current migrant, how the probability of women labor force participation would change. The other coefficient calculates the difference between the outcome of the treated and the outcome of the control. So it does not mean they don't mean the same thing, but they provide me with the same conclusion that having a migrant in the household increased female labor force participation.
But doctor, we can only use, for example, the kernel without using this inverse probability.
Yes, but this is what we said. There are two things. So there are two different things. Or you use the matching methods based on the propensity scores, and use different matching methods to see the difference between the outcome of the control and the outcome of the treated. Or you use the calculated propensity to create weights to correct for the observations and estimate a general normal regression.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. But here you can see what we can see that from using kernel or using the n neighbors or using the weights, at the end of the day, we conclude that having a migrant in the household increase female labor force participation. And I will send you the do file, and you can see that I tried with different things and tried with X's and tried without X. And in addition to PS match 2, you have another command, which is P score. It gives you not the same output, but the same idea where you can match between the groups and shows you the average treatment effect. And always you have to compare between the average value of the X in treated group and the X's in the control groups.
Doctor.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to obtain the records of both today and yesterday?
I think Ramaj will send it to you. Yes, sure. And already Dr. Chahir sent you, Ramaj sent you all the slides of yesterday. Today I will send you also the do file and the slides of today, and the records are with Ramaj, but I think Ramaj will send it. Don't worry about this.
Thank you.
Any question, comment, request?
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Hope you find it useful today. Please don't hesitate to send me an email if you have any questions, and we'll see you inshallah next week. Yes.
Doctor,
yes.
I will excuse me, but I will anticipate for the next week. A simple difference between the propensity score matching, only in introduction, between propensity score matching and difference in difference. In a practical way.
Yes. Yeah, but there are two different methods. So without anticipating, you have to expect that there are two different methods, and we cannot. I mean, sometimes you can apply both in the same time, and sometimes not. So yes, without anticipating, we have different. There are two.
No, only the example in which we are using the propensity score matching, for example, observable characteristics. I think. And difference in difference when we are controlling only for unobservable characteristics.
Yes, because this is the advantage of difference in difference. That it allows us to take into consideration also that unobserved characteristics by controlling change over time, which was not the case for the PSM.
Then if we use this technique in takaful, for example, between 2 years. Then we are not controlling for observable characteristics, but only for time inconsistent characteristics.
So let me use the Egyptian movies way and tell you to be continued, to give you some suspense, to looking forward for my next lecture and see how to be the case in difference in difference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you a lot.
Have a good night, good weekend, and see you inshallah next week.